We all see the TV commercials of people who create who they want you to think they are. And that's what you need to be for your business. Today we're going to talk to you about how to personally brand yourself perfectly aligned with your vision and mission. Hey, welcome back to Blunt Force Business. I'm Brian LaFauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
And today we are diving into the importance of personal branding.
Awesome.
Very good. All right, want to jump right into our Blunt Force facts?
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Blunt Force fact number one for our listeners is you are what you stand for.
Yeah, so your personal brand is a combination of what you value and your experiences and skills, and that's how you're going to be defined.
Blunt Force fact number two for today, we use this one all the time, is don't talk to strangers.
So in this case, we're going to talk about it more in the frame of reference that people are likely to do business with people they know. And the more people know you, the more likely they are to do business with you. Whether they know you actually or whether they just know you from your TV commercials or your social media.
Awesome. And Blunt Force fact number three is define yourself before other people define you.
The negative part of this is if you don't do something about your personal branding, then you could have a personal brand by accident. That is not something that you want people to feel you are. And the more linked you are to your business, the more that can be a negative on your business.
This is a topic that we get a lot of times. And this is a topic that I know you and I kind of try to figure out. Everybody tries to figure this out and come up with a nice balance of how much of me is the business and how much do I need to put forward? How much personality do we show? We just did a series for our One Strategy social media that Shannon came up with us, which was absolutely brilliant. And the concept that we were talking about at the time is we had just done a not a podcast, but we had just done our weekly business call on the concept of what are the key people that one of our listeners on the call was like, hey, what are the key professional resources I need? Like, what do I need? What does it mean to do I need an attorney, quote unquote? What does that mean? Or do I got some on retainer? And so then we went through the key, accountant, banker, attorney, and insurance agent, right? 4 necessities to have a relationship with if you're a business owner for a number of reasons, right? And we talk kind of through what that relationship needs to look like and all that good stuff. But with that being said, Shannon was like, in case for our listeners who might not have picked up on this yet, I have an Italian heritage, and that can come out, sometimes. She's like, we need to do I think Shannon, we'll use a Sopranos or Goodfellas or whatever, little series, show a little of your personality, but keying people into the key resources that they need to have as a business owner. So letting them know, hey, you need an attorney, you need an accountant, and all this stuff, right? So back to the point of personal branding, she goes, but you're gonna do it as Bronx Tale style.
Yeah.
So I got dressed up in my tracksuit, because I got one, of course, right? And we used it as an opportunity to in a funny personal branding way to let you kind of know a little bit about how myself and our company kind of likes to operate. We did it in this light-mannered way, but it was really, there was a point to it. My dad was like, what was so maybe it wasn't great because my dad was like, what's the point? But my dad doesn't get he's not looking at it through the right lens.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the series, then you get the sense of the idea, who's Brian? Number one, he's a big-time networker, so he knows a lot of people, and that's one of his values, right? So that's one of the things that you get with Brian is you get this network, right? So I think you got that.
Yeah,
right?
I think we help the companies we work with a lot because we have the right people.
We got a guy. And then number two is he's a goofball, right? So it's you got the two things together, right? Yep. And there was a good representation of you and a good example of doing some intentional personal branding.
But we had And to the point of today's conversation, these are discussions, like, and they're discussions around one of the things that gets discussed when doing something like that is this exposing a piece of what we do that we want people to kind of be let in on? That's important that people see. And in that case, we thought it was. We thought like there's value here in people seeing a little bit of this nature of us when you're working with us, that we are business consulting. If you were to avatar exercise, if we did the avatar exercise and like draw a business consultant, you get it. Like what he's going to look like. He's going to be very, very rigid. He's going to have a tie. He's going to, right. And we approach our clients different. Like the same way we do with Blunt Force Business. Yeah. We approach our clients differently. And that was a great opportunity to kind of let people into that brand and let people see what we are and how we kind of like to approach certain things.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it was a great opportunity to do that.
What you're doing as well is it's also a modern example, because here we are and you're doing this on Instagram, right?
Yep.
And across social media, right? And, 20 years ago, none of this existed.
Right.
So the way that you would have done this would have been through community events or through like a TV commercial.
Right. A TV commercial.
And what social media has done, I think, is social media has made it more important. Mm-hmm. Because the likelihood of you 20 years ago have felt like you needed to be on television or out in the community a ton. Does it affect your business? We're going to talk about the fact that it is a positive for your business when you're doing those things. But it wasn't as necessary is the wrong word for it. But it's like everyone's on social media, right? So it's almost like you have to do this whether you like it or not.
Right.
Because back in the day, if you didn't want to do television, you didn't want to be in the community, you didn't really have to do it. But now it's like everybody's on social media.
Right.
So it's like and there are some people who are not active on social media, which is great if you can handle that. But the likelihood that there's some representation of you out there in the internet is way higher now than it was back then.
Right.
So for you not to have control over that.
Well, and let's also talk, that's a great point, because let's also talk about what happens the minute someone comes in contact with you. And if any of you have tried to do anything with any kind of big sales organization, prime example, I reached out to HubSpot recently because I was interested in this service they say they have, and I wanted to kind of get a little, right? So I get on the call with the guy, and he immediately is like, hey, go Huskies, right? Like, he researched me to know something about me, right? Everyone's doing that. So to your point, where are people gaining the information they want of like how they want? So everyone, you got someone new that you're going to do business with, they're looking you up. They're doing the stalker dive into you without the. It's so rare that you don't get on the phone with someone who maybe is a potential client or something like that, or is interested in something you do, and they haven't already done the dive on you.
Well, how often have you ever done this? And this is not recently for me, but in the recent past that I can remember, where somebody does that.
Yep.
And you're like, oh shit. Like, how did I find out about that? And you're like, oh, I haven't updated my LinkedIn in 5 years.
Right.
Or I haven't updated my, my Instagram is this,
right.
Is this catastrophe of, my old married life and like doesn't represent who I am now.
Yep.
So like that's what happens is you get caught blindsided by it.
Yeah.
Instead of you having control over it.
You give really great feedback to business startups when we do the session on social media together, and they're kind of kicking around what to use. The best advice you give them is, if you're not on top of it, get rid of it. And I just stole that working with a client recently in the construction industry, and I looked at it through the lens that I've learned from you. And I immediately was like, hey, you're going to dump every one of these but one, because you're all over the place and there's nothing of like, there's no consistency anywhere. And the message I get from one thing, because you only did one or two things there, is completely different than the message I get from another. So reality is, if you don't control the space of how you want to be viewed, then when people look you up, they're going to find what other people put out there, which is our blunt force fact number 3, which is define yourself or someone else will, because what are the things out there that if you were to Google Brian LaFauci or Patrick Moreno, hopefully a lot of it's positive, but it's stuff published or put out there by other people.
Yeah, there's in some cases you can't control it. In some cases, obviously, just it's your reputation. So there's, living a life of without sin is the best way to not worry. But I mean, there's stuff. You can find not super negative stuff about me, but like stuff that was written about me. You know what I mean?
Negative stuff about anyone
about
out there.
My past life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like about things that are just totally irrelevant to what I am right today.
Yes.
And it's just like, and it's not necessarily bad. It's just different than what you would expect.
But if you are, to your point, if you're putting stuff out there consistently to build your brand, and we're talking, like you said, right now we're talking a lot about in the online space because. And you can do this.
Well, the online, because online is the omnipresent, is the problem. It's really the problem that you didn't have to deal with 20 years ago.
Right.
You didn't have to worry about it. If you wanted to be more out in the community, you did it. You could way more easily stay invisible.
Right.
Now it's like, okay, well, even if you don't want to be visible, somebody's tagging you in something.
Yeah,
somebody's putting you out there somehow, right? And it's like it's way harder to. So we're trying to be more intentional about it.
I'm always super impressed when I can't find someone. I am like blown away. When there's someone, I'm like, who is this person? And I can't find them. I'm like, wow. It's a red flag immediately that they're a secret squirrel for some government agency, because it's crazy to be in a situation where you can't find someone. So, but if you were to look up URI right now, not the college URI, you or I, put the pause there. If you were to look up you or I right now, you're going to have to muddle through a lot of shit that we've already put forward to get to anything that is because we're all, we've created our personal brand. We're curating it actively, so it's going to be front and center. And so part of it, for those of you that are on the fence with, hey, is this a good idea or bad idea? And, you brought up, and I want to hear your take on this, please, but you brought up, it depends a little bit how much part of the business you, quote unquote, are. And that does matter. But at the end of the day, the reality is if you don't curate it, someone else will. I mean, that's the reality.
Our audience is small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Yep.
So the chances of you being the business are higher probably for this group than anybody else. I mean, the other example of this would be like a CEO. A CEO is like the outward. For the most part, you've got some CEOs of big businesses who are a little bit more behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like when, for example, when Tim Cook took over Apple, he was more of an executive, like in terms of running the business as a business, versus who was previously the CEO. Who was previously the CEO of Apple. Is Ryan listening to me? Is he shaking his head?
You want me to answer who the CEO was?
Yeah.
Oh, Bill Gates, right?
No,
not Bill Gates. Steve Jobs. Bill Gates was Microsoft.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs.
I didn't know you were looking for an answer. I thought you were going to fill in the rest of the sentence.
Steve Jobs, who had a very, you knew exactly who Steve Jobs was and what he represented with the turtleneck and his ingenuity and the type of person he was. So that's what he wanted Apple to be, right? So you can have the different versions of this, but the smaller the business, the more, again, when Apple started, it was just Steve Jobs and Wozniak, right? So it's like, this is me. The business is me. And if you are in a trade, the business is you, right? If you're in construction, or if you're an electrician, or if you are a business consultant, the business is you, right? So a lot of these small businesses, you are kind of more outward facing, whether you're selling to customers or whether you're selling to other businesses. The smaller the business and the more the business is reliant on your skills and what you do, the more important I think this is. And the other things we talked about with the blunt force facts, like, I pick up clients, again, every once in a while. It's like I looked up other digital marketing agencies, but so-and-so knew you, right? And so like they had a good impression of you and they passed on. So that's the same thing here. And it's like, and we talked about some examples off air where we were talking about like the heavy hitter, right? Personal injury attorney.
Let me see. That's if you're a Rhode Islander, or probably Southeastern Mass.
Or like if you're, or like you see, like we had Ernie Bach Jr., who was a used car guy up in Massachusetts, right? They were constantly on TV with a certain image of themselves. And now what they've done is they've made themselves familiar, and you're not thinking, I want to do business. I want to buy a car from this. I'm going to buy a car from Ernie Bach Jr. Him personally, because he's branded himself so well. And what you can do is with your branding is you can make yourself that familiar person. Right? You can be, and you can be the example is they're going to do business with you because you're a friend of theirs, even if they've never met you. But you've done the personal branding to make them understand they know who you are. Why are you friends with somebody? It's because you know who they are. You know what they stand for. You know what their values are. You know that they're good at what they do. Through your branding, you can communicate all of that if you intentionally do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and they, it's funny because we were talking about one of those people. I won't mention it right now, right? But before the podcast, we were talking about one of those people, and I said, one of those, people who've done a nice job of personally branding themselves. And I said that person, from those people that I know that have a lot of interaction with him, that person's a douchebag, right? And I forget one of you like, really? Like, but the reality is they've done such a nice job of personal branding themselves that you wouldn't know that. Like, unless you got to hit the back.
Who was the guy from Tommy Boy? The Dan Aykroyd character.
Oh, this is your lane. You're so much better. Yeah, come on. I thought
Callahan Alaparts.
I thought Bill Gates was Steve
Callahan,
Jobs. Steve Jobs
I
Bill
think
Gates,
Callahan Alaparts for the American worker, and it turned out he was a douchebag in the back end, but he had branded himself as being this stand-up guy for, so like people wanted to do business with that guy, right? I think the other way of...
It's like the senator from Hard to Kill.
The
bag senator, the blood bag.
So not
anytime.
It's so not.
But I just wanted to drop on for Gil.
Just so I have a reference to throw in there.
But let's bring it to don't talk to strangers. Piece.
I want to talk about one more thing.
Okay,
I was going to be in the middle of it. Sorry, but the part where this goes wrong is if you don't. We're going to talk about solutions as part of this, but if you take a stand that's unpopular, you better be committed to it, and you better be ready for the ramifications. So, and I'm going to go both sides of the political aisle here because I think it's important. If you decide that how you feel politically is so important to you that you can't shake it, so core to you,
religiously, this is religiously,
right? Exactly.
Too.
So you have these like really strong views,
politics and religion.
So if I know you because you're in a TV commercial and you're all over social media, and I look you up and the first thing I see on your profile picture is a van covered in a Trump flag. You have to understand that as the business owner, that is going to, in some people's minds, say something about you. And for you, that might be so important that you don't care about the consequences.
Yep.
But the broader your audience, the more you have to realize you're turning off half the audience. And the same way, there's this brand called Him and Hers. It's like I know they do like, I don't know whether they do like hair loss.
I know
and
what
they
you're
do
talking
like erectile dysfunction pills. Like they do like, but it's very social media heavy.
Yeah. It's a hormone-based company. Like all things related to what happens when your hormones
It's
change.
a younger company, right? And the CEO came out in defense of and this is the other side of the political aisle, right? The Palestinian protesters. He's like, hey, we're behind you, and we would hire you. And the stock of the company plummeted.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have either one of those views.
Yep.
But I'm saying that if you are going to have a view that is controversial, you better freaking have that view, right? And the good example of that is Ben and Jerry's, right? Everybody knows they're hippie, crunchy. That you're going to know exactly who they stand for and what they stand for. They've been committed to it since they started. So you can disagree with them, but that's who they are.
Right.
And I don't know many people who've not eaten Ben and Jerry's ice cream because of their
I'm
highly
sure
political
there's some people,
views. But there are certainly some people. But
that's a choice.
And exactly. I think that's the point, right? It's a choice. It's not by accident.
Right.
And so I think that some people have these things out there by accident. They just think, I'm just going to freaking say whatever I want on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because
or accidentally you post something personal. Maybe you have a business and personal page. This happens. And you post something personal on the business page, and there's ramifications.
The more connected you are to the business, the more you have to be.
Yeah.
I think you have a responsibility to be aware of what you're putting out there, and you can decide. Like our decisions is usually to curate that shit, right? And sort of like say like, like here's what I want to represent, and I'm going to stay in this lane.
Yep.
And some other people are just like,
Yeah, but there's definitely times where we let our opinion, I mean, we're
we definitely do.
very
Yeah, of
opinion
course.
based
Yeah,
and willing to be okay with the fact that if this isn't in your lane, like if this isn't in your lane, you're not really the client for us anyways. So
no, for sure.
fine.
There's things like that for sure. But then there's other things I would just never talk about.
Right.
And I've been the more social media has become important to what I do, but also to the world.
Yep.
The more cognizant I have been of that, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it affects my family, how it affects my business, how it affects everything.
Right.
Right. And that I'm not going to talk to exactly what I've done, right? But I've definitely thought about it more.
Right.
Because I am concerned about how it reflects my business.
Right.
Because I want a certain type of client, and I'm not gonna cause a problem for that.
Yep. Yeah, I like it. I think that's really good. I think it's all good feedback. And I think a lot of times, I think for our listeners, what they're looking for is, well, give me the right answer.
Yep.
And I think the right answer is this. You have to the right answer is you need to make it be a conscious decision of you have to manage your brand. You have to manage your personal brand in whatever fashion you want. Doesn't matter. If you want to manage it in the fashion where certain religious or political components are important and I want them to be represented on my brand, then that's fine. That's a conscious decision. If they're not, then that's the conscious decision, and you need to have parameters in place to say, all right, this is the left and right of where I will go, where won't go with that conversation.
Yeah,
and it's got to be deliberate.
And it could be just more like I'm more private. Here's me with a tie on in front of the Chamber of Commerce. That's my brand. You never see my kids ever.
Right.
That's not me, but I'm saying like that could be your brand.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And your brand could be like, I'm always in front of the freaking private plane.
Yeah.
That's my brand. Mm-hmm. I'm always in front of the expensive looking real estate.
Right.
Whatever you decide to do, it's intentional.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then you recognize what the consequences are.
And if you're not being authentic, you're gonna that eventually is gonna come around.
Yep.
And that'll bite you in the ass. So be conscious of authenticity. We talk about that a lot, but I do believe in today's day and age, with the way people are searched and found, and the concept "don't talk to strangers" is important, and how that relates. Just to explain that one a little bit. Well, how does that really relate? Well, it relates in the sense where how do you get a lot of business? Well, most people will say that a good amount of business is through product or service wise is through referral based. And referral based is strong because it comes from a sense of authenticity of like, this is a viable person you got to go to this, or this is a really cool product. You got to check it out. Right. I just bought this thing for the back of the car for my puppy. It's really cool. It's just like it sits in the back seat and it creates like this, almost takes the whole back seat and makes it into like this little kind of safe area. It keeps your seats clean, right? But it also has sides and everything. So it makes your pet feel that like comfortable, right? Because my dog gets a little nervous in the back seat. I bought it. I really liked it. And I took a little video of my dog jumping up in it, and I sent it to my family. Now, my other family members all have dogs. And 3 or 4 of them were like, that's awesome. Where'd you get it? So I definitely just sold 2 others for the company, right? And they did so because they came from me. They know I really value my dog and making my dog happy and blah, blah, blah. And so how do we create that? How do we create that with customers that maybe don't quote unquote really know us? And the way we do that is it's through creating this personal brand in the online world, right? It's creating this feeling that when somebody goes to my company, they can really get to know what we're all about beyond just a service delivery or a product delivery. They can get to know like what's important to me. And I'll tell like one other story really quick. Like that is from a product standpoint, we use for my dog, we use this product called the Halo Collar. It's an electric fence, but it's GPS, so you can put it anywhere, right? Wherever you are, you can create a fence. Great product. But beyond just the product, they partnered with Cesar Millan, You know who Caesar
Where
Milan?
is the dog?
Caesar Milan is? I don't know. Maybe in the other room.
All right, good. Sorry.
I
"Geez,
put
dog
bacon
is
in a
good."
Kong, so that's where she is. But they partnered with Caesar Milan, right? And Caesar is obviously, people love him for the way
He's got a very specific brand.
Yeah, when you got the collar, you got these series of training videos with it, and it was Caesar like talking to you, and that really connected me with the brand because I just felt like, oh wow, this is great. Like, not only do I get this cool product, but I get Caesar Milan, and he's talking to me through like these 8 videos, right? And you did a video, and then once you mastered it, you went to the next one, and the connection to what the company was all about was completely sold on it. And it was through that. It was through this like really interpersonal branding piece they did with him. Now, granted, we can't all afford Caesar Milan to come and, but we can do that. We do that, right? We can provide a glimpse into who we are to our client base to let them see not everyone's doing a podcast like this. So we have the benefit of we're able to get in front of our clients a lot, and they can see us in a natural, just kind of learn who we are, what we're all about. But not everyone's going to do this. Less than 1% of the population is podcasting. Of the business population is, right? We think everyone's podcasting. Bullshit. I have tons of entrepreneurial friends. I am one of like 2 that do this, right? Now, like we say everyone, it's not even close. Right? Think about how many of our friends that we know that are entrepreneurial we've brought on here. None of them have their own podcast. So we have the opportunity to create that a lot and make the people out there not strangers, but they really have to kind of create that and build that. By creating our personal branding, we can kind of break down some of those barriers. And I know that was a little long-winded, but I appreciate you listening. You did a great job listening. And I hope our audience kind of understands where we're going with that. From a takeaway, I got to wrap it because it was a long conversation.
Are you wrapping the podcast?
I'm just wrapping the statement. Takeaway standpoint is this. You're probably not doing a podcast. So you need to be conscious about how frequently you're putting yourself in front of your client base so they can get to know you, so that you're not a stranger.
Well, so now the people have been watching and listening, right? And now
And
they
they're
are
tired of
ready.
hearing from me,
Now
so
they are
go.
ready for the 5 steps to an effective personal brand.
Go.
You
All
ready? I love them to go through it. You definitely insert yourself here, Brian, because you've been talking pretty
I'm gonna
eloquently about this whole thing.
myself.
Explicitly decide what you want to be known for, right? Write it all down. I want to be known for, like being a good dad, or knowing a bunch of people, right? Having a good network, being able to refer people out, being known as a goofball, right? Or being known as super serious and successful. Whatever it is, explicitly, not just in your head, right? Write it down. Write it all down. Number 2, nail down your ideal customer, right? Which we've talked about a lot. Do the avatar exercise. Figure out who the person is who's going to be buying and selling your product. Buying your product or service. Who's the person that's most likely to do it, because we're going to be communicating our brand with them. Number 3.
Don't nail your ideal customer. That's bad for business. Nail down your ideal. Just want to clarify.
Figure it all out. It's a metaphor, Brian.
Words matter.
It's a metaphor.
Want our listeners to understand. Words matter.
Number 3 is you got to align those 2 things now. Okay, so here's the things I definitely want to be known for and I stand for, and the things I care about in real life. And then here's my ideal customer and what they care about. And now we're going to do an alignment exercise where we figure out, okay, well, what do we want these people to know, right? If they care about the fact that I know a bunch of people, I'm a good networker, and I know I can help them out, then that's going to be something I want to push forward as often as possible. And if there's things about me that are less important, I will not talk about them as often, right? Or I won't talk about them at all. So we're going to align those 2 things, right? So step 1, write them all out. Here are the things we care about. Number 2, figure out who your ideal customer is. And number 3, align everything and make it part of your personal brand. Number 4, this is the cleanup part, right? So we're going to find the platforms that we need to be on, the platforms that we are on, right? So there's things that you can't control and things you can control. You can't control what social media platforms you're on, right? If you're invisible on Twitter, take down Twitter, right? You talked about before, but if it looks bad. We posted 2 YouTube videos 3 years ago. Just take them down. Don't even let people know about it. right? But what are we on? What can we control? You know what I mean? If you are more public, do a Google search of yourself and figure out, okay, here's the time I appeared here. Here's the time I appeared here. Is there something I can do about it? Can I bury those things, right? Can I talk about those things or whatever it is? But let's do a little bit of platform management. Okay, here's what I'm going to look like on Instagram. Here's what I'm going to look on Facebook. Here's what I'm going to look like on YouTube. What can I control? What can't I control? And then you might need to curate a little bit. This is what we talk about this on our call, right? It's like maybe my current Facebook is a representation of my whole life, but it doesn't have to be. If I think this is important, I can delete some things. Or on my Instagram, I can hide some things, right? I can get rid of the things I don't want to represent me. It's easy enough to do. Curate.
I wasn't going to jump in,
No,
but I do want to jump in on that point. Too infrequently, we don't spend the time to do that. So if you are if you're new in business and you've had your Facebook, Instagram account forever, and you are going to start this process of curating your personal brand and blah, 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 all that good stuff, you need to go back a good couple years and do the exercise of going through your posts and going through all that stuff and spending a couple hours and making things that should be private, right? So,
or you can make the whole account private.
Right, exactly.
Make your whole Facebook account private and really control who your friends are and stuff like that. Like if you decide
yes,
here's how I am in my real life, and I don't want this to be my personal brand. That
you just want. Some people just like the privacy of it.
Some people like the privacy, but some people just want to be a certain way,
right,
in private with my friends and family. They don't want the rest of the world to know about.
Yeah,
that doesn't have to be a negative way. It could be like just a privacy way, but we can just privatize that. Just freaking lock it down. You can't be my friend. You can't find out about me unless.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There are people, as long as you're a good person, right? As long as the morals are there are TV, radio personalities, all things like that, that what you see in those settings is not really who they are. It just works for them in those settings and gets them the contracts and all that good stuff.
But have you consciously thought about it, right? Are you planning it? Have you thought it through, right? These are all the things that we're talking about here.
Yep.
And it's okay to be somebody different for your business than you are in your personal life. But you have to think that through and make those decisions and choices. Make choices.
Yep.
And then the last part is now that you've done all that work, you've decided what you want to be known for, you figured out who your ideal customer is, you've aligned the messaging between those things, you figured out the platforms, you've done the cleanup, and now you want to be consistent going forward, right? Consistent with these are the types of things I'm going to talk about. These are the ways that I'm going to be represented in person. These are going to be the types of visuals I use. If it's important that I'm in a shirt and tie as often as possible, I'm going to be in a shirt and tie as possible. If it's important I'm with my family to show my family values, I'm with my family. What are the things that are important? I'm going to make sure that that's consistently brought across, the types of words I use, whatever it is. These things are consistent. I think of like Jerry Seinfeld. He's known for being a clean comic, right? So he's always in a suit, right? So like these are the things so like that's how he's going to present himself, and it's very different from other comics, right? So same thing for us. We're going to present ourselves a certain way, and we're going to be consistent about it. Anything to add, Mr. LaFauci?
I have used up my time, Senator.
Do you want to wrap us up? There are blunt force facts.
Are we going to have a worksheet for this one, or no worksheet for this one? What's the worksheet status?
Can I delete this? Can we rewind that and delete it?
No, we can just say no if there's no worksheet for
I'll
today.
do a worksheet.
You think? I just think you offered some awesome takeaways. And something that our listeners could download just with a way to kind of line that out would be not to give you extra work.
You got it.
When you know what they say, if you don't want to do stuff, do it
Don't
shitty.
talk about it.
Do it poorly, but you did that really well. So now I think it deserves a worksheet to go with it. So good stuff. Let's wrap with our blunt force facts today. Blunt force fact number 1 is you are what you stand for. Blunt force fact number 2, don't talk to strangers. And blunt force fact number 3, define yourself before others define you. Great stuff. I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
Until next time.
Thank you.